Hello again and welcome to this new set of video tutorials for my YouTube channel. This group of tutorials is to accompany my new Christmas blanket pattern for 2024. That's the Sugar Plum Blanket, and I'll take you through the stages of the pattern with some tutorials which help if you're more of a visual person. So obviously, starting with number 1, we've got squares in the center of the blanket to make, and there are 2 different designs of square, and I've taken the simpler of the 2 for the first video. So this is a granny square, simple granny square, but with just the addition of a couple of little rounds of contrasting colours. And I know that many people know how to make a granny square, but there are different methods, and I think it's worth my while just taking you through the method that I use in case it's a little bit different from your own. The centre squares have 4 different colour choices, and this is the pale green one. I've got a deep violet one and a darker green one, but today we're going to be working with the lilac colour, which is going to be the lighter purple. The colours are all listed in the pattern, and they're double knit weight. The pattern is in my Etsy and Ravelry stores, as well as the Wool Warehouse website, and the links to them all are in the description box below. And also on the Wool Warehouse website you will be able to get the yarn pack to make the blanket. So I'm going to put this to one side just now, and I'll take my lilac colour. The ball of wool isn't on camera because I've got it on a yarn holder off to the side, but you can see, you will see the colour building as we work it. And the 2 rounds with the contrasting colours, I'm going to use the dark green and also this fuchsia pink colour. And the tools you will need is a 4mm crochet hook, which is a G. This is my trusty crochet hook that I use all the time, and a blunt tapestry needle with a large eye for sewing in the ends. For this square you will need a stitch marker of some kind. This is a cheap little one. You could even just use a length of contrasting yarn, and sharp scissors, and I have them sitting on this felt pad so that they don't clatter around while I'm making the video. So let's start. And take my hook, and I'm going to make a slip knot to go onto the hook. So what I do is I just put my forefinger of my right hand over the yarn, under the yarn, and turn it so that you've got a loop like that, and then I put the working yarn behind and pull it through, and that gives you your slip knot. And I'm going to chain 4 to start. 2, 3, 4, and then find the first chain and put your hook in, put the yarn over, pull it through the first chain and also the one that's on your hook, and what you've done is you've closed that group of 4 chains into a circle with a hole in the middle, and we're going to be working into that center hole for round 1. So here we are, we've done the chain 2, and I'm going to put 2 treble stitches into the center hole. So that's yarn over, put your hook into the center hole, grab the yarn and pull it through so that you've got 3 loops on your hook, yarn over again, pull through 2 of the loops so that you've got 2 loops left, yarn over again and pull through those last 2, and that is a treble crochet stitch. Yarn over, into the center, pull up the loop, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So now what I have is the first side of a tiny square. I've got chain 2 and 2 trebles. I'm now going to make the corner, and to do that all you need to do is chain 2 and then 3 trebles for the next side. 1, 2, 3, and there you can see we've got one side and another side. Chain 2 for the corner, 1, 2, 3 trebles and another chain 2. So when I've got 3 sides of the square done, 1, 2, 3 trebles for the last side and chain 2. And that's round 1 complete. So all you need to do now is to look for the top of that first chain 2, that's the top chain, put your hook in, try and make sure that you pick up 2 loops, pull it through and through your loop that's already on the hook, and that's you sort of joined up round 1. Now you're not going to be cutting the yarn because it's still the same colour. So that's round 1 complete, and you're ready to start round 2. And to start round 2, chain 2, and that's going to be the equivalent of the first treble of round 2. And I chain 2 before I turn, and I'm going to turn my square over so that the reverse side is uppermost. And we're going to work round 2 on this side. Now, I want you to look carefully at the square. You can see that there are 4, let's see if I use my needle, it might help. You can see there are 4 spaces which make up the corners, and we're going to be working into these corner spaces for round 2. Now, I've chained 2, and that chain 2, now that I've turned it, the square over, is really at the very right hand side of this corner. So I'm going to count that as my first treble, and I'm going to make a complete corner in this corner space from round 1. So again, we're working with trebles, and I'm going to put 1, 2 into that corner space, and then I'm going to chain 2 for my new corner, and then put 3 into the same corner space. So it was chain 2 and 2, and then chain 2 and 3. So the chain 2 was the first one here, 2 trebles, chain 2 space here, and then 3 trebles. And this is our new corner for round 2. Now I don't put any chain stitches between the corners. Some people do, but I prefer my squares to not be too open, so I'm going to go yarn over and straight into the next corner and put 1, 2, 3 trebles, chain 2, and 1, 2, oops, take that back, 2 and 3, and there you can see corner number 1, corner number 2, and I just need to put 2 more of those corners in, 2, 3, chain 2 and 3 trebles, and then the last corner, 1, 2, 3, chain 2 and 3 trebles. And now we're back where we started. Now sometimes you'll find when we're working granny squares that when I start a round, particularly if it's a change of colour round, I'll only start with half of the first corner, and then you will finish it as you come along by putting in the last 3 trebles. But in this case, the complete corner is made. So all you need to do again is find the top of the first chain 2, look for the 2 loops if possible, pull your yarn through and yarn through that, and that's round 2 made, and you can see that it's forming a nice tidy looking square. Round 3, I'll start that and then I'll leave you to work the rest of it yourself, but for round 3 I'm going to chain 2 once more and then turn it, and this time the chain 2 isn't closest to a corner space. In fact, because we have gone from one corner to the next, what's actually happened is that you have a space between the corners now for round 3. So you can just see it here. There's the space, because you've got a group of stitches on one corner and a group on the other, so there's a space between them. This space is the one that's nearer to the chain 2, so I'm going to count this as our starting space. We've chained 2, which is the equivalent of the first treble, so I'm going to put in 1, 2 treble stitches, and that's our first cluster of trebles in round 3. So bear in mind that there will be another corner to make, which I'll go and do now. So that's 3 trebles, chain 2 and 3 trebles. And 3 trebles. And like we had on this side, there's a space in the middle on this side. So we put 3 trebles into the middle space. And then into the corner. Three trebles, oops, chain 2 and 3 trebles. So I'm going to continue round. I've got that middle one to do and the corner, this middle one and the corner, and then I'll be back at this point to show you how to start round 4. So I have come back at the point where I've just done the first half of the 4th corner and my chain 2, so I'll just put in the last 3 trebles of the corner, and there we can see that you're right up at the point where you started, and as usual put your hook in, pull your yarn through and through again, and that's closed off round 3. Round 4 we're going to chain 2 and turn it, and this time as the square grows you'll see that there are 1, 2 spaces along the side of the square as well as the corners, and our chain 2 falls right next to the second of the middle spaces. So 2 trebles in there, as you can see, and then I'll work all the way around 2 clusters of 3 trebles in 2 spaces on each side, and of course the corners, and I'll come back when I'm just about finished round 4. So look at this nice square, granny square now. That's the beauty of the turning over after each round. It keeps the square balanced and straight, and you don't get wonky edges appearing or it pulling out of shape. And I would recommend that you do this every opportunity that you can. Sometimes in the pattern, especially in the other square, you'll see that I don't turn it every time, but when it's a simple granny square like this and you get the chance to turn it over and work it on the other side, it really does make it a lovely finish. Okay, so what we're going to do now, I've done my last cluster of 3 trebles and I'm right back at the first cluster, and I'm going to put my hook in and pull through as usual. But this time I'm not going to chain 2 because we're going to change colour, but I'm not going to finish off this end. I'm going to pull up and take my hook out and just pop a stitch marker in to stop it from coming out, and we're going to take our next colour. And I'm going to turn my square over, and I think I'll just move away from that. It doesn't matter which corner. We're going to start in a corner, so I'll just keep it away from that stitch marker for the time being. And the first colour I'm going to take is the dark green. And I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to start in the corner. The way I do it is not necessarily a way I particularly recommend. It's just the way I first learned. But I just pull my yarn through, put both tails over the hook and pull them through so that you've got 2 loops on the hook, and then just identify the one that's the short end and pull it out. And then we've got our yarn attached, ready to go. Now I'm not going to be working with treble crochet stitches for this round. It's going to be double crochets, single crochet if it's in the US, but we're in the UK, so double crochet. And for that I'm going to chain 1. This is a smaller stitch, so I'm just going to chain 1 for the first standing stitch, and then I'm going to go into the same corner space without yarning over. As you can see, my hook is just going in and then it's grabbing the yarn and pulling it through, so there are just 2 loops on the hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull through those 2 loops, and that's a double crochet stitch. Now, instead of looking for the spaces this time, we're going to work into each of the stitches from the previous round. That's these stitches at the top of each of the treble stitches of the clusters. And I'm not worried particularly about the actual count for these. These double crochet stitches are going to be partially hidden by the next round of lilac. So basically all we're doing is just outlining these clusters of trebles from the previous round, just giving them an edge of green. So there's no counting. You don't need to worry too much about that. Just go into the next stitch. So you're picking up the 2 loops. If you can see that, you can see that there are 2 loops on the top of each of these stitches. Pull your yarn through, yarn over and pull through the 2 loops, and then into the next one and do the same thing. And the other thing I'm doing is not pulling too tightly, because it can pull your square a little if you're too tight, and also you want as much of this green showing as possible when you come to do the next round. So if it's a fairly juicy stitch, if you like, as you can see there, it's not pulled tight into small stitches, it will show up better. So I'm just going to work along this side and then show you what happens in the corners, and then I'll just come back when we get to the point where that stitch marker is. So I'm just about at the corner. I've got 1 more stitch to put in here, and there I'm at this corner, and all you need to do is put in 1, 2, 3 double crochet stitches to take you round the corner, and I'll carry on and work along here, and I'll come back at this point. I've worked around 2 and a bit sides now, and I've reached the point where this stitch marker is dangling. So I'm just going to put in my double crochet stitches right up to that point, and then I'm going to bring this lilac yarn to the front and my stitch marker, just hold it down out of the way and continue working. So you just need to work into all the lilac stitches as you go round. And you've got the stitch marker and your lilac end on the front. So I'm going to work round, and at this point I will be back to show you how to finish off the green and how to start the next round. All 4 sides are nearly finished, and I've just got 1 more stitch to put in before the corner. And if you'll remember, when we started we did a chain 1 and 1 double crochet. So the chain 1 kind of counts as a stitch, and I'm going to put 1 more double crochet in that corner so that we've got 3 stitches. And now all you need to do is to slip stitch into the top of a stitch to close up the round. And the first chain 1 is pretty difficult to see, so there's no reason why you can't just go into the top of the first double crochet and pull it through and cut the yarn. Well, I've already cut it, and finish it off, and that gives you your round of green double crochet stitches. So the next round, round 6 if you like, because that was 1, 2, 3, 4, the green was round 5, we're going to put the lilac yarn back onto the hook. And here comes the obvious question: why did I not finish off this lilac yarn at the end of round 4? And the simple answer for that is because it gives us less of the tails to have to sew in. If I start, I've got 2 more rounds of lilac to do. If I had to stop and start after every coloured round, there would be extra tails to sew in. This way you are holding on to your yarn, and you've just got the 2 tails of the lilac to sew in. Anything for a simple life, really. So I'm going to take my stitch marker out and slip the hook back into that loop. If by any chance you had forgotten to pull that loop to the front and the working yarn to the front, then it's quite a simple matter of using your hook to pull them through this any of the spaces, and you're ready to go. If they're at the back, you can pull them to the front, but the way we worked it, we made sure that they were at the front. Now I'm not going to put this stitch marker down. I'm actually going to put it into the square somewhere, and the reason I'm doing that is just to make sure that you know that now this is the front of the square. Why? Because the small double crochet rounds are always worked on the front. So we've just done that one on the front, and so this is going to be classed as the front of the square. And we turned it over after we did the previous round of lilac, so it's showing at the moment that this round is showing on its reverse side. So keeping the tradition of turning after every major round, we have turned because we turned it to do the green, so we can stay on this side to do the next round of lilac. I'm going to put my yarn just behind the loop that's on the hook and chain 2, and that's our first stitch for the next round. Now for this round that we're going to be working, you're going to completely ignore this green round. you're not going to be going through anything of it. You're going to almost imagine it's not there, and we're going to consider just the spaces in the lilac round. These large spaces are the spaces that you're going to be working in. So we've chained 2. That's the equivalent of the first treble. We're back to working with trebles. I'm going to go down to this space and put in a treble, 1 treble and another treble. So I'm working right over that green edge with my first cluster. And then I'm going to look for the next space. And in this, I'll pull this out because I want to show you the next space. This can look a little bit confusing because it looks as if there are 2 spaces there. What you want to do to keep it nice and clean is to go into the space below, the larger space below, so that there's no little tail of lilac showing. So what I'm going to do, put this back on, and I'm going to yarn over and go into the bottom space and make my 3 treble stitches. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm at the corner. Now, when you come to the corner, there's a little tip that I want to show you. Try and keep your working yarn over to the right for this first cluster of 3. And so it's sitting kind of there. If it was over here, then you would have a big gappy space. So I'm just going to put it there and work my first treble crochet stitch. So we're going right over that green and into the big space of the lilac round, and that's 1, 2, 3, and I'm really doing my best to keep these 3 stitches in it. My yarn holder's got itself in a tangle, that's it. I'm really doing my best to keep these 3 stitches at the end of this row, if you like, before we turn the corner. You can see what I've done, and I'm chaining 2, and then I'm going to do the same again and try and keep these 3 on the new side, and that just gives you a nice crisp corner. 1, 2, 3. Just show you what that looks like. And there we've got where we started, the first cluster and then the 2 clusters for the corner, and you're just getting little punches of the green showing through, and that's what we're looking for. So I'm going to work all the way round. I'll probably come back halfway just to let you see how it's going, and then I'll work till the end. So I'll carry on just now. I'll come back about this point just to let you see what it's looking like. So there you can see how it's looking with the green showing through in parts. And just to remind you to keep your hook below that little piece of lilac yarn so that it's keeping that space nice and clean. And then I'm back into this corner again. This is my 3rd corner. Try and keep my working end to the right so that it sits on the cluster of 3 stitches, sit at the end of the row before we do the chain 2 for the corner, because we're kind of working around the green, the small green corner. Chain 2, and then over to this side with the 3 trebles. And there you can see. So I'm going to work all the way around here, and I'll come back when it's time to finish off and start the next round. And that's round 6 just about complete. I just need to find the top of that first chain 2 to slip stitch into, and like before I'm just going to put a stitch marker in to hold that. There we go. And we've got the green shining through. You can fiddle with it a little bit if you think it needs, if it's pulled tight. Try not to, like I said before, try not to pull that green too tight so that there's enough of it to show through. And we're on to the next round of double crochet stitches. I'm going to slip this all the way around so that we're not near the stitch marker for starting. And this time you're going into the space that's, I've got ends here, into the space that's created by the lilac in the previous round. So you've got this space here, and we're going to attach the yarn. I don't know where I learned to do it this way. It's not necessarily the best way, but it's, you know, when you start doing something and do it thousands of times, there's no other way that you can do it. Right, so I've attached my yarn. I'm going to chain 1 and 1 double crochet in that corner. And again, I just need to work around the 4 sides, working into the top of each of the stitches. Now, what I didn't say was, excuse me, I didn't turn it this time. Why? Because this is the front of my square, and my small double crochet rounds are worked on the front. So I haven't turned it, and I'll just work all the way around. I'll pop back here at this point to let you see what I do again, and that will be round, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 complete. So I'll work around here and I'll see you at that point. Okay, I'm back at this point where the stitch marker is, and just, can I say, remind you that it's 3 double crochets in each of the corners. And if you have been, you know, I did say with the green one to try to keep your tension relatively loose as you're working this double crochet round. If you have got a little bit tight, what you might find is this happening. Don't worry about that, because when you come to do the final round of lilac, it will flatten it down. Okay, now when we come to do our final round of lilac, we're going to be turning it once more. We didn't turn it the last time, remember. So this time I want you to put your stitch marker and the end of your lilac yarn to the back, and then you can continue and continue with your double crochet. So the stitch marker and the end of the lilac is ready, waiting for when you turn it over for the last round. So just 1, 2, 3. Okay, I will work along here and finish this off, and I'll come back when we're ready to start with the final round. I've just completed this round with the fuchsia pink, so as I said, it's turnover time, and we've got the stitch marker ready to do the final round of lilac. And I like to get this behind so that I can get it ready to put it in my left hand, and we're off with the last round. So it's over to the reverse side, chain 2 and 2 trebles into the large lilac space. So you'll see that the lilac round, that the previous lilac round is on its wrong side. So we're not really considering, we're not really bringing the double crochet rounds into the equation when we're considering the turn of the square. It's the lilac rounds that are the important ones. So that's us keeping the same sequence going of turning after every lilac round. 2, 3, chain 2 and 1, 2, 3. I just want to show you what it looks like. Will show you properly when I've finished the round, but at the moment this is the front of the final round, but we know it's not the front of the square because the stitch marker is on the front. So when you're finished, your final round will be on its reverse side. And the reason I do that is because when it comes to doing the join, I like joining the reverse to the front. Again, it's all about balancing and keeping everything from going a bit wobbly and out of shape. So this will be the front, and we know that because it's got the stitch marker. So I'm going to come all the way round and finish this off and just come back briefly to show you what the square looks like, and then we'll be on to the next video for the second square. But I'll see you in just a minute when I've gone all the way round. So that's my square complete. Which is the front? That's the front. So we have the wrong side, the reverse side of the last round uppermost. And because we know that's the front, the next job is to sew in those tails nice and firmly. And any that are showing on the front, you can just grab with your hook and pull through out of the way, and then turn it over, and we've got just 4 of those and 2 of those, although my preference is to leave this last tail until the squares are joined. And the reason I do that is because if I have sewn this in along here and back a couple of times, it can close up these spaces and make it difficult to see when you're doing the join as you go, when you're joining the squares. So I leave that last tail normally until it's joined, and then I can sew it in quite safely. So all we need to do is sew in these tails, and this center one is an important one because this is the one that we use to close up the center hole, this space in the middle. So what you want to do, I've threaded it onto my needle, and I'm just going to run it through, not going through to the front, but just underneath the first layer of stitches. And I'm going to work, without pulling at this point, I'm going to work it around the circle, like that, roughly back where I started. Took me 3 stitches to get all the way round. And then the satisfying bit, the bit that I like, just give it a really good tug. And you can see that that hole closes up almost completely. And then I need to make sure that that end isn't going to pull back out. And to do that, I'm going to go over a few more stitches in the opposite direction and work all the way round back to where I started in the opposite direction. You can go round a 3rd time if you like, or even just again just a few stitches. Even splitting the wool helps to keep everything from pulling out. If you've ever tried to unpick something which has gone through, has split the yarn, you'll know how difficult it is. So that's not going to come apart, and that's your center. Then when you come to sew in the tails for these ones, you don't need to pull them anything like as tightly, because that would, it's not necessary, and it would pull the square out of shape. So get that onto your needle and just, let's just pick up a little bit of that green and then put it underneath that lilac. Come through, you can see what I've done there. Just pull it a little to make it disappear, and then back the way. And then once more for luck. This is where sharp scissors are important, so you're not chewing the yarn, and you just need to continue with the other 3 in the same way, and that is square number 1 complete. I wouldn't take this out at this point, because until you've done a few, you may forget the side that's the front. So I'd leave that one. If you have enough stitch markers, you can leave it in. If you don't have enough stitch markers, you don't need to go way out and spend money and buy stitch markers. You can just take a contrasting colour. In fact, it could be a complete contrast. I don't have any, you know, it could be yellow or something that you're not using in the blanket, and just cut a length. Let's just take a short length of green that happens to be lying around. Put it onto your hook, or onto your needle or your hook, and just pull it through and tie it, not in a knot, just in a little half knot, so that it's not going to come out. And that will be your reminder that it's the front. So if you don't have enough stitch markers, you can do that. So I shall be back with another video. I may actually be back in with this video, because I have an idea that I haven't worked out yet that might do something in the middle. But we'll, if you don't see me at the end of this video again, then we're moving on to video number 2, and I'll see you then. Bye for now.